What is up, everybody? I have a very special guest that is going to be talking with us about comics, the industry right now, the industry as it was, all of that good stuff. You guys, of course, are very familiar with his work, especially if you know the villain that is of Bane. You are very familiar with the great Graham Nolan. We're going to be speaking with him again about so many different topics. Has been sort of a request as well of even my own audience that we have this discussion. I have been on his channel, but he hasn't been over here on the main channel over at Young Ripper 59. Let me welcome the great Graham Nolan. Brother, how you doing?
Eric, so nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad we could finally sort of make this thing happen. Look, appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you got a lot going on. We're all kind of launching stuff. We're all kind of in this situation where we're trying to make our comics pop in this kind of volatile, I would call it, industry. It's kind of getting I don't want to say shaky. It's just, it can be up, it can be down. There's successes kind of in individual pockets. It can become very interesting these days. But again, I appreciate you joining me. I want to start off by just same thing I did with Chuck Dixon, who you've worked a lot with. Just kind of give the audience, as a legend such as yourself, give the audience just your introduction kind of into comics in the industry itself, not just as a professional. We want to get some information on that, but just as a lover of comics in general.
Yeah, sure. I grew up loving comics thanks to a sixth grade teacher that brought in a stack of comics for the kids to read at recess. And one of those books was a Justice League comic, and it had all these characters that I knew from other multimedia, Superman, Batman, Aquaman, and there was something. I had comics in my life prior to that, but primarily I was a monster kid. And I loved monster movies and magazines and stuff. So it was kind of tertiary to comics. But when I got that Justice League comic, that was like a light bulb went off in my head. Maybe because I was the proper age. I was 12 years old. And it really, really resonated with me. And at that moment, I knew I wanted to write and draw comics. From that time on, that's all I ever geared my life towards doing because I just loved it so much.
That makes
So
sense.
then I ended up going to, taking art classes. I had a proclivity for it because I was always, copying the drawings that were in the comics and stuff. And I ended up going to the Kubert School and honed my craft there and, sold some, I sold some student projects to DC for their new talent showcase book. And that's what launched my career.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, it's kind of everybody has those kind of identifiers, right? It was that thing that made it pop, the thing that people kind of gravitated towards, that made them want to sort of fall in love with this industry, and it's always intriguing to certainly hear that. So, we know your work with, maybe they don't know. I know you did like Phantom and you did all the stuff with DC. Kind of what came first? Kind of what was your introduction into getting kind of into mainstream comics? I'm sure the audience wants in on that.
Sure. I started at DC with those two projects. Then I bounced over to Eclipse Comics, and that's where I first started getting my first real work. This is around 1985, I think. My first sale at DC was 83. So this year will mark my 40th year in comics.
Wow.
If you can
Wow.
believe it.
Wow.
And so when I was at Eclipse Comics, that's where I met Chuck Dixon. Chuck and I got paired together on Skywolf, which was a backup feature in Airboy. And Chuck was writing both those things. And that's the first time we worked together. And we worked on that for a few years. I think it was a few years. I was also doing The Prowler with Tim Truman. And then things started happening at Eclipse. They were starting to implode. And so I went over to Marvel, got my first Marvel gig, which was a Transformers issue.
Nice.
And yeah, that was really nice because, those toys were selling
Yeah.
a ton of
Yeah. Yeah.
It was also my first royalty check.
Nice.
And then I went over back to DC again, and that's when I started getting regular work. I started on some Doom Patrol. Then I got Power of the Atom. Then I was offered Hawkworld. And I started Hawkworld with issue number 1, and I think I did like 24 issues, like 2 years worth before I moved on to doing other projects. I wrote or I co-plotted and illustrated a Metamorpho series, and then I got offered uh, some what they call inventory stories or fill-ins, I should say, on Detective Comics, and that's when that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw Batman from the time
Yeah.
I was a little kid, and this was an opportunity which I couldn't pass up because I've been trying to get in. I'd shown my stuff to Denny O'Neil and to Archie Goodwin, and Chuck was writing Detective Comics at the time, and they paired us up again.
Yeah. Came full circle, huh? So, and I want to like obviously discuss that because it's I get the feeling that it's just maybe you do, I don't know, or maybe your approach is similar, but when you're writing something as like or drawing something as iconic as a Batman, right? As the Batman, definitely doing some of the main books per se, like Detective Comics. Like how is it like one of those things like this is a dream come true? Do you approach that kind of different as an artist than you would, let's say, a project that maybe would be of a lesser known character? Like when you go and like you paired up with great Chuck Dixon, you're writing, you have drawing and you're writing of Detective Comics. Like what is your psyche going through in that and having like that's their flagship character?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I wasn't deterred a bit
Nice.
because it's what I wanted to do since I was a little kid. I knew Batman. I knew this character inside and out. I knew who he was. In fact, I was the de facto Batman historian. If anybody had questions about Batman, writers, editors, and stuff, they would come to me. And I could tell them all the Golden Age stuff, so I knew intrinsically how this character worked and behaved. So when I got to draw him, one of the things I do with characters when I approach them is to make them different, so that they're not just posable figures. Like my Batman stands differently than my Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to put these kind of personal attributes to them to make them individuals, so that they're not just cutouts. Different jaw lines, different looks, different postures, different poses, different, all that kind of stuff. And I knew Bruce Wayne, and I knew Batman, and I knew how I was going to approach it. So uh, I wasn't I wasn't at all intimidated when the opportunity came. In fact, I grabbed that baton and just ran. you know.
I love it. Now, and that
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, obviously, like I said, that could be a dream come true to just come up as an artist and want to be in a position. I mean, that's kind of what you're living up to. Like, it gets no bigger to that to me. Like, it's like, okay,
Right.
you're writing the flagship character of one of the biggest, like mainstay kind of comic book companies. So that had to have been huge. But as you do all
Well,
these, go
let
ahead.
me just interrupt you a second and tell you the converse of that story.
Yeah.
Uh, I love Batman. I always wanted to draw Batman. You know what I didn't love?
Hmm.
X-Men. I
Mm.
could give a rat's ass about X-Men. And I got to do a bunch of X-Men stuff with Chris Claremont.
Yes.
X-Men Forever, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Uh, and I have to tell you, because I didn't care about these characters, I wasn't intimidated by because they were so popular. I wasn't intimidated by it. So I just decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my versions of them. I'm going to, I never read an X-Men comic. I just kind of like, I got some reference for who these guys were. And then I approached it like very uniquely on my own. And I'll tell you, it was some of the best pencil work that I ever did for Marvel because I wasn't, um, hampered by past continuity or past versions or all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like the converse, but I came to the same
Conclusion.
point
Yeah.
when I attacked the project.
That's interesting. That's certainly interesting. And like I said, just being in a position to work on some of these characters just has to be insane. I know the audience is like, wow, just to again, like what else is there to do after that, after you have accomplished that? Nonetheless, I do want to talk about obviously the kind of elephant in the rooms with this industry, right? That you and I both love. So again, had this exact conversation with Chuck, kind of what was that like? Because, yeah, you were doing all this DC work, and then, you start to kind of more so focus more so on like the independent work we'll get to talking about in a bit. What was there like like defining moment where like, okay, this is maybe I'm not going to be doing this as much as I had been before and working with, let's say, mainstream comics? Was there like a moment where that happened where you realized that? Was it one of those cases where, definitely going into the mid 2010s, there started to be certainly a shift of from an ideological point. So was there anything that may have happened in the industry that had you be basically under the impression that, look, I'm probably not going to be getting as much work as I was in the past with either of these companies, be it Marvel or DC?
There's actually two moments. The first came in 1998 when my daughters were young. And DC, I was under exclusive contract with DC, and they used to send contract players everything that they published. And as I looked through these books to give to my daughters, I realized that these are very violent and overly sexualized. How the comics were becoming, and I'm talking about U.S. superhero comics. I'm not talking about comics as a medium, because I believe that comics can reflect everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limits on the art form. But when we're talking about basically childhood entertainment, which is what superheroes are, that these classic characters were becoming too much for the younger readers. And so that was a moment where I started exploring self-publishing, and I did my Monster Island book back in 1998 to write a story that everybody could read and still enjoy it on different levels, without it be condescending or anything like that. And then I got out of comics and went into the newspaper strips as a result of that, because I wanted to try something different, and I stayed in that for about, I think, 13 or 16 years. When I got back out and started to get back into comics again, there was a huge change, because now this is like 2015, 2016. Lots of changes.
Yeah.
All the editors I knew were gone. They were replaced. This creeping ideology was starting to come into it, and they were hiring unqualified people to basically gatekeep in the industry as editors, and editors in chief. And so I realized that I was banging my head against the wall trying to get in. And then I discovered crowdfunding, and I'm a tenacious person, and I won't let anybody try to squash my dreams. So I just found another route. They blocked it, and I went around it. You either go around it, you go through it, over it, or under it.
Yeah. No, that makes all the sense in the world, and it's sad that it kind of came to that change that happened again, like going into mid 2010. I think everybody noticed it. Didn't matter what side of the industry that you were on, whether you were a customer or you were someone like yourself that's actually in the industry and had a respected name. And then there was a change, and thankfully there were other like ways for folks like yourself to be able to make a living and continue to do what it is that you love doing, while also, again, just making a little money. And we'll talk about that. I guess now it's a great time to kind of segue into that. And that's the whole crowdfunding stuff. Like, what did that introduce like in comics? Because to me, it seemed to change the game like completely, as opposed to relying on, let's say, other publishers and other people to get this work out. You're starting to see a lot of people that are going to be able to, let's say, have some sort of healthy, sustainable, style of living, like standard of living, that is, without having to rely so much on, let's say, getting that check from, let's say, the big two. What was that like, discovering that, and what do you think, and how do you think that changed the industry?
Well, it was a paradigm shift, to be sure. What your viewers might not realize is that the entire comic book industry was predicated on a somewhat legally mushy law called work for hire, which allowed publishers to keep everything that other people created. And it wasn't until the 80s, late 80s and 90s that they started issuing royalties. But that royalty percentage is based upon a certain number of sales and a small percentage. Mm-hmm. So they still make the lion's share of everything. What crowdfunding has allowed creators to do is not give your best ideas to big publishers that are going to chew you up and spit you out when they're done with you, or when they determine you've aged out, or that your style is not the hot thing that they're looking for today. That stuff happens in every industry. I get that. But now you can find your own audience because the audience is out there. And it's a lot of work, as we both know. Yeah. You're constantly busy. You're constantly promoting. But the other beautiful thing about this that I love more than anything, it's not just the creation, but it's the interaction with my personal fan base now. Before, there was so many dikes in the way of getting to you. You know, you had your publisher who they didn't want you talking out of turn or telling things about, you know, what's going on. You had your retailers, you had your distributor. Mm-hmm. You know, now it's me delivering my stuff directly to you. If there's a problem or you have a question, my email is right there. I answer everything. It comes right to me. You know, so you have a direct connection with me and the product, and I have a direct connection with you, the viewer or the backer. And that personalization of it has lifted my spirits immeasurably.
I can only imagine. I mean, like, definitely considering that you were actually part of it. I know I kind of came in. I've been a customer my entire life, and just a student kind of in that regards, but not as a creative, certainly like yourself. So you experienced both the kind of old way of doing things versus kind of what is being introduced now. And like I said, it's wonderful because there are so many independent, or rather just good people that were doing good work that for various reasons, whether it be through the cancel culture BS or the ideological BS, where they kind of, to your point, got kept out of the industry despite all the hard work and the good work that they had did before. It's not like it never mattered, and I guess that's what happens when you have a bunch of unqualified people that are in these positions. But with right. this whole element of the social media as well as the crowdfunding deal, you have people that even if they don't have the startup capital, they're able to convince other people to invest certainly in that and make their sort of dreams come true, and everybody wins out of that. And I think that's even the customers, right? Because like you said, like there's no the direct line of sight is with you, right? They don't have to go through all of these different channels like they would before to have to let's even speak with the creator or the person that's running whatever the crowdfunding campaign or anything like that. So I love that it has again allowed people to have that standard of living while also just really is benefiting the customers. And to me, I think this at least a form of that, kind of like what we did with the Riververse, at least a form of like the utilizing the social media and having the direct line of sight and being a self-publisher. I think that's the way of the future. And I do think that certain old models that are archaic are going to become more obsolete as this continues to grow. Because I think we're like just on the technology alone, like it's changing and it's completely changed the game. Do you think that there are maybe your former colleagues, do you think that that's something that you're going to see more people, definitely like people that I consider like kind of OGs in the game? Do you think that more people are going to kind of be adopting that as kind of a means to continue to create books?
Well, I think they're going to have to. The reality is that you look at the sales numbers of these books, and they tell you lies all the time about how great everything is selling. But what they're doing is they're mixing in trade paperbacks and they're mixing in manga sales. That is not reflective of what is known as the floppies, the comic books. If those numbers were so great, they wouldn't be cutting their staff. They wouldn't be DC wouldn't be moving out of their high rent offices into these rent a office a day type things. Mm-hmm. So we know that the industry is hurting on the corporate level. Um, and they're probably getting subsidized by the major corporations, which keeps it going because they want to IP mine them and pull out all the IPs. I really think that Warner Brothers and Disney, or it's not Warner Brothers anymore, is it? It's
No, it's like,
Discovery.
yeah, Discovery now. Well, no,
Discovery.
it's like Warner Discovery. I know AT&T sold off the assets, but it's like Warner
Yeah.
Discovery. Yeah,
But whoever it is
yeah,
that owns these corporate overlords, I think they don't give a crap about publishing. Their line of thinking is, 80 years of stories. Why do we need new ones?
right.
Put a screenwriter in. We'll pick something from and modernize it. Um, so yeah, to get back to your question, I think that if you want to stay in this business, you're going to have to do that. But the reality is, a lot of people, a lot of artists, creatives, I should say, don't have the motivation to do that. They just like to do their work and get a paycheck. But when you're the sole guy, you got to do everything.
Yes.
And you have to learn about publishing. You have to learn about paper weights and ink styles and all the other things that go along with it. Distribution. How are
Yeah.
you going to distribute it? There's so many facets of it, and it's such a wonderful learning experience to understand the ins and outs of your entire business. But not everybody has that motivation and that work ethic. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be flipping burgers.
No, I don't necessarily disagree with it, just because to your point, I don't think that this is sustainable, right? You're seeing that there's been a decline in the sales, even right now. I was talking about this with my audience, right? And like, even this is the first year in a long time that nobody actually knows what the sale, everybody's guessing, right, on what the sales actually are, because Diamond hasn't made their numbers public since 2022, April of 2022. And because, now DC and Marvel are with Lunar and was it Penguin Random House, they're not making those numbers public at all. Now, look, if they were doing just well, they couldn't stop bragging about it. That would be something that you, of course, want people to know about it, especially since it's been a industry standard. Now, that's kind of not the case. So we know that I looked them up, even like when the numbers were available, when you go like 2016, 2017, 2019, there's a unit sales decline. They keep pointing to sales while including like manga, but not looking at the actual unit sales. You see unit sales are down. And so the content, there's a content problem. You're getting your tails kicked by the Japanese and kind of your own industry. And yeah, maybe there's a lot of people that are in these positions that otherwise maybe wouldn't be able to do it themselves. Because to your point, I don't think people know, man, when you are doing your own thing, self-publishing, it is work, man. It is a lot of stuff that just a lot of people don't have the capacity to do. I think that's why it's easy for them to do stuff that's spiteful, ruin characters. I think it's easy for them to do that because it's like, hey, you're getting your check regardless, all that sort of stuff. You don't have to worry about really anything. You do your commissioned work and you're out of there. And when you're the sole guy and when you're the head honcho, like you said, you're having to worry about, what type of stock you're using. Is it going to be 60-pound matte? Is it going to be 70-pound gloss? What is it going like? All that sort of stuff that's factoring in the actual cost of your product and obviously if you're working with other people, making sure they get like it's a lot of work, man. And a lot of folks don't have it in them. Just the ethic, right? The actual work ethic to do it, because you're probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, doing the independent stuff now, you're probably working harder than you ever had doing stuff with DC.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My days don't end till sometimes 10, 11 o'clock at night because in the evening time, you're streaming.
Yeah.
You're doing
trying
shows.
to promote your stuff.
Promotion work. And the other thing too is that if you're a writer artist like I am, it's a little easier than if you're just a writer or you're just an artist. Yeah. And you're trying to do what we're doing, because now you got to hook up with somebody and now you got to split the revenues with somebody. So if it doesn't do well, that's half of not doing well.
That's very true. It's risky business and it's work, man. And that's why I commend so many people that are in kind of our corner of the internet and in this space. Definitely having gone through what I did with the Rippaverse, it's just a lot of work, and I commend so many people that are able to do it, because I know, we are, mutual friend and Ethan Van Scavers, is now fulfilling with Wreck Planet. You know what I mean? And that's awesome to see. You know what I mean? And I know how much work he was tweeting about the other day, talking about like fulfillment work. It's hard. Like it's not easy,
Oh
man.
yeah.
When you're doing it yourself, it's not easy. Which is why I got so much respect for what it is that everybody's certainly doing. Let's get into your own work that I certainly wanted to discuss. Kind of what you're working on now, what you have worked on before. You got Alien Alamo. You were teaming up with I know my friend with Kevin Grievous. With you had the giant size, two-fisted manly tails, all of that stuff. Like, let me know what you're working on, how that stuff has been doing, and just pitch all of that stuff to the audience because we know that you have an upcoming campaign as well.
Yeah, yeah. I started crowdfunding with the Canoe.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to do with my Compass Comics, and Compass Comics was established back in 1998 for the publishing of Monster Island. What I wanted to do was not do superheroes. I felt that was an over populated genre. And as I mentioned earlier, I was a monster kid. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to create my universe around monsters, science fiction, supernatural, that kind of stuff, but always with a tinge of adventure. I like to have a protagonist to root for in horror movies or monster movies. So I started off with the Canoe, which was basically a straight up horror tale about an ice creature that comes in during the blizzards, during the great 500-year blizzards, to feed. And that was my first one, and that did very, very well. After that, I followed that up with Alien Alamo, which was a science fiction Western, but I also wanted to tell a relationship tale, a story of a father and son that have to reconnect through a new war, basically a war with these alien creatures. And so after that, then I decided I wanted to, because of the current climate that's around us, I just felt like men were getting a bad rap. 5 writers to do 2 stories each. So there's 10 stories, 10 pages, and I hired artists and letters and colorists and stuff to do all this anthology stories. And that's the one that Kevin Grievous did some great stories for. And Chuck was in it. Larry Stroman was in it. Butch Geist, Bart Sears, incredible A-list roster of creators that basically celebrates what the left calls toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So it was, kind of like my little aunt to you.
I absolutely love that.
And that one was another great success. I think that one raised $137,000. And so the current book that I'm working on is the Ghosts of Matacumba Key, which is the linchpin book that connects the Nolan verse together. Unfortunately, that it's been shadow banned on Indiegogo, so you can't search for it. So I'm sure we'll put a link into the description here or something so folks can find it. And then I just launched the sign up page for Joe Frankenstein. So I'm going to be reprinting the rights came back to Chuck and I, and but we didn't have the actual art, the files for the print files. So I'm having it re-lettered, and it looks so much better. Carlos Manguel is lettering it for me, and he's done a bunch of stuff for Compass Comics, and he's super. And it looks so much better. I mean, Frankenstein monster now has a unique word balloon. So you can always tell when he's talking, kind of like Swamp Thing, had that unique look. We're going to put new covers on it. We're adding the prologue, which was only available in the out of print hardcover. There'll be extra backstory goodies. And all that stuff is to get everybody ready and get Joe Frankenstein under the Compass Comics banner and get them ready for the big surprise that's in the Ghosts of Matacumba Key, which is now going to set up things for brand new Joe Frankenstein stories by Chuck and I.
Oh, beautiful, man. I think a lot of people are going to certainly be stoked on that. And I'm glad that there's other people certainly in our industry that's, definitely in the independent scene, kind of taking a risk, doing different, like you talked about monster based kind of stuff, just taking risks, doing other stuff outside of the superhero kind of genre. I think is exciting and certainly what the industry certainly needs. So I obviously wish you nothing but the best with that. Can you? I hate to kind of backtrack just a little bit. Kind of, we'll continue to talk about more of your stuff here in a little bit.
Sure.
But just because I know I forgot to even bring sort of some of this stuff up, like so. We know with like a character like Bane, obviously you had a fundamental part of the character's growth and inception, really. And how does something like that, definitely after you had that Batman trilogy that came out, we saw kind of our first glimpse of him being live action. And all that, like, what sort of is that feeling? Kind of, if you can at all explain. And I don't know if you think the character's a bastardization or whatever in the version that you saw. But considering that, again, you were a core person that had a key in kind of his first kind of depiction, certainly in these comic books. What is that like, seeing something go from, let's say, in your mind to pen to paper, and then seeing someone try to give it a shot, even in animation and let's say live action? Like, what certainly is that feeling? Is that like something that you tend to not like, you tend to not care about? How do you feel about that?
Well, I really like the animation versions, particularly the first one from Batman the Animated Series,
Oh yeah.
because they utilized most of my original design for Bane, i.e., the luchador mask with the open nose and
Hmm.
mouth and stuff like that. And I thought that was great. And to have a former Rat Packer, Henry Silva, do the voice with the Hispanic accent, I thought that was fantastic. Um, I also like the Danny Trejo one from, I think it's Young Justice.
Hmm.
That one was really great because then they used like the real design of Bane for that one. The live action ones, not so much. Not only did they get the look wrong for Bane and everything, but they got the character wrong in all of them.
Right.
So my feelings early on were, oh, this is really cool. When I saw the first action figure of Bane, that was really cool.
Yeah.
But when I've seen, I've kind of been jaded by the way they've treated him, not only in media like this, but in the comics too. That I've sort of put it behind me. It was a nice historical thing. It was great to be part of. He'll always be my baby.
Yeah.
But I gotta move on to other things. So I don't linger on it that much, to be honest. I'm always looking forward into what's next.
That makes sense. Yeah, certainly. And, I hope that with the growth of our side of again, our little corner of the internet, that there's going to be certainly opportunities for us to see animations and all that on our own work.
Right.
And I can't wait to see that. I think that's going to be actually closer than it is going to be further away if we continue. Certainly the success we're seeing, that people want to invest in that, and I just want to see people's vision kind of come to life. I just know that as a creative, I can't even imagine certainly being in your position, considering like you've created some of these iconic, like, these characters, particularly in Bane, excuse me, but like with like characters that I've created. Like I talk about this all the time. Like, of course I want my imprint on all of that. You know what I mean? And it's not just more so about ego or arrogance. It's more like, look, man, there was an intention with the character. We want to make sure that any event that he shows up outside of something, like the comics, let's say, we want to make sure that there's some level of familiarity and it's believable to that character. And oftentimes, because there's so many people kind of involved with definitely with these massive big budget projects, good luck trying to get accurate adaptation of certainly your characters. But
Right.
with what we have right now, we're able to like maintain ownership, maintain rights, maintain imprint on it in the event that it goes there. So I hope that some of the stuff that you continue to do, definitely with some of the like the MonsterVerse stuff, I think a lot of that is going to look good. Let's say definitely in like animation and other stuff. So hopefully those opportunities are coming. Like, is there anything, moving back kind of to like your own individual creations? Is there anything like you got this upcoming project? I'm guessing this is going the sign-ups for it. Like you said, that started recently. I saw the launch. We'll make sure we're
Today. Started
Today.
today.
Right.
Yep.
So we'll have all the links certainly in the description, as well as a pin post, so you guys can get signed up there. Anything
Great.
else kind of on the horizon, or maybe aspirations? We're at the beginning of 2023, so
Hmm.
I didn't know if you had anything kind of on your slate of like you want the audience to kind of know that you're working on. Is it like a project by project thing? Do you have? Are you even able to see that far down? Like what's Graham Nolan got for this upcoming year?
Well, there's actually some big stuff coming on. Chuck and I are involved in a company called SpinRack, which is we're having our first mobile game come out. It's a match 3 game out, which should be out probably within the month, and it's going to have Joe Frankenstein on it.
Nice.
It's going to have my Sunshine State characters, and it's also going to have Law Dog, which is Chuck's, and my sister Suprema. And the other stuff in the Nolan verse, the Alien Alamo, the Shanu, Ghost of Metacum Baki, are all going to be part of the SpinRack multimedia company. So we're going to be branching out into starting off with small mobile games and then going off into actually the big games,
Nice.
the metaverse type stuff. But we're going to grow the company that way. So if you go to spinrack.io, that's where you will find information on that. As we're locking things down now, and those games are going to be released soon. So, all the stuff from my comics and from Chuck's creator-owned comics are all going to be a part of that. So we're hoping for to expand to just a worldwide, huge audience with that.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, that's certainly ambitious, and I love to hear that something like that is certainly in the works. We need it. It's necessary in this audience, for this audience, and I just think that just the sheer amount of opportunity that we have and being in the position that we're in is just unlike anything that we've seen before. Again, just social media has introduced just an element that just was not really present. Certainly when you were coming up, and it's allowing people to blow up faster. It's allowing information to travel faster. So it's allowing just great opportunities. So I certainly wish you nothing but the best with that. And of course, you're working with Chuck, which is always awesome. We love Chuck over here, and you guys have teamed up and done phenomenal work over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask, because I asked Chuck this same question. It was his answer was interesting, and I can't wait for the audience to kind of be in on some of the stuff that we talked about off the stream. So,
Okay.
Rippaverse, we got our own thing going on, and we had a little just a little bit of success going into the end of the year
A
last
little
year,
bit.
and just a little bit. And we're going into this upcoming year. We have a lot of ambitions. We got Ice Hump too. We got other projects that are currently in the work. I would love to, let's say, get Graham Nolan to somehow maybe pencil and ink some work, certainly for us. How realistic? I know you got a million things going on, but in the event that we wanted something like that to happen, I'm asking this for the audience. How realistic would it be for us to be able to pull something like that off?
I think it'd be very realistic. It all deadline specific though.
Yeah.
But
Of course.
I would love to work with you on something. I couldn't probably do continuity pages,
Yeah.
but a cover or a pinup, something like that, I could probably do.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll certainly keep that in mind. I'm trying to take advantage of certainly the opportunities that come up, and I would much rather work with people kind of again on this corner of the internet than external. Nothing wrong with that. If there's other people that are kind of leaving the mainstream industry and are looking for work, we can chat about that. But people that are already here doing work, I would love to do work with and for. With that being said, and I guess we can kind of end on kind of this note, like your experience. So obviously, you have former colleagues, right? You have people that you were maybe cool with in the industry, all that stuff.
Oh, sure.
Is there do you think that, I know we kind of talked about it earlier about people going to have to maybe look into maybe crowdfunding space and other stuff to stay afloat, considering the direction of the industry. But is there one of those things, like you have people that maybe you talk with, I don't know what their experience, that are still there, like that maybe are still doing stuff like predominantly in the mainstream industry? Is there a sense that maybe the walls are closing in, there? Are they happy being still kind of doing work, or is it one of those where you kind of got people kind of nudging your elbows like, hey man, I'm ready to get out as well? What is that relationship, let's say, in your honest experience, that people that are part of the industry still to this day that may have been again part of it when you were?
Well, I think there's a nervousness. There's a palpable nervousness there. Uh, they're still holding on, and they're hoping for changes and maybe back to the way things were. I don't think that's likely. There's a few people in the industry that are, that do very well. They've got the contracts, and but there are a handful of people. Your John Romita Juniors.
Mm-hmm.
Your Adam Kuberts. Your David Finches. There are a handful of guys that are still making probably very, very good money on the companies. Do they enjoy the work that they're being assigned? I don't know. I don't think I would be, because I don't recognize these characters
Mm.
anymore. It's not. I played in that sandbox, and I don't recognize who these characters are anymore. They've gone so far afield that I just really have no interest in them, unless they said to me, "Hey." In fact, this would actually work. If Marvel came to me and said, "We want you and Chuck to do the Fantastic Four, and you can do whatever you want,"
Mm.
I would do
Yeah. Okay.
that.
Okay. I respect that. I certainly
I would
respect
do
that.
that. Maybe for just a mini series or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
That would be something I would be interested in, because they'd leave us alone. We could do what we wanted, and it would be the kind of Fantastic Four that people loved.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously had experience with some of these guys, even some of the people that are working on some of the future Riververse stuff that were part of the industry. I've heard the stories, and yeah, you do get a sense of kind of nervousness of even with some of the economics of it all. You're starting to hear a lot of creatives not getting paid.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's the new thing
yeah,
too.
that's the thing, and it seems to be happening with everybody. You know what I mean? Really, in like as far as the major, let's say, publishers. So there's clearly a problem. We saw what happened with Aftershock going in bankruptcy. There's an issue here. You know what I mean? And I want to be honest with ourselves. I want to be honest with the industry. That's the only way that we can fix it. But I think our side is ahead of the curve, and these guys are going to be in for a rude awakening if it continues down sort of the trend that it's on. Yeah, before we get out of here, again, just let the audience in on, if there's any closing thoughts, things you want them to, again, be aware of. We're, of course, going to put all of the links to your projects, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity, a last opportunity to just pitch everything to the audience. If you have any final thoughts, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. The main thing I like to get across when I do these streaming things is for people, fans out there, to support independent artists. That's where the real creativity is coming. We're coming up with the ideas organically. They're not coming from editors or worse, executives up top saying this is what we got to do, and we've got these characters that we've practically stolen from people, and we're going to tell you how to do it. Supporting the independent artist is really, really key to creating great product, great entertainment, and guys like us in this little corner that Eric talked about are doing just that. It's some you've heard some stories about people that aren't fulfilling, and there's going to be bad eggs in every dozen.
Mm-hmm.
But there are plenty that you can find out who are constantly fulfilling on time and delivering on their promises, and that's what I do. Compass Comics is shipped every time and has never had any problems with anybody. We do our fulfillment ourselves, and so we have full control of that stuff, and it's worked out great, and all the backers are very, very happy. So it's risk free. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it takes some time. You're trusting me to hold on to that money until Ghost of Metakumba Key ships in August, and I understand that. But you will get everything and more of what you've signed up for. And for those of you that are watching that have backed my projects in the past, I want to thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart, because without you guys, we can't do this kind of stuff. It's your love and passion for this art form that allows us to create the comics that you love. So, my hat's off to you guys. So thank you.
Oh, again, well, Graham, I appreciate you so much. It's certainly an honor for me to, man, be able to have you be a part of our stream, just considering that, I said this to Chuck, I keep bringing him up because obviously you guys work a lot in the tandem and half, but, it was, I'm a relatively younger guy, and you know what I mean? It was y'all's work that I was reading growing up. So how things kind of come full circle like this is amazing. It's wonderful, and this is certainly a dream to be able to speak with you, and even if I can be in a position to signal boost sort of any project that you guys are a part of, I will do whatever it is that I can to make sure that the people hear about it. So again, Graham, I appreciate you so much for joining us, and hopefully maybe even after the launch, we will have you back, and we'll just talk about the campaign again.
That'd be awesome, my friend. And thank you so much. I mean, isn't that the cool thing about this business, is that, you start off as a fan reading it, you get involved in it, and then you're working with the people whose work you love. I mean, I know exactly how you feel. When I got to work with Jim Aparo, who did the cover of the first Detective Comics I ever bought, and then before you know it, we're on the phone every week talking about Seinfeld episodes that came on. And I mean, it was just so amazing. There's so many people that I grew up reading that I actually worked with and became friends with. And I can't think of any other business where you start off as a fan and then you become a colleague and a friend.
Yeah.
And it's again one of the magical things about comics, which I just love.
Yeah, it's certainly a wonderful industry, and this is why I certainly say the things that it is that I say, because I genuinely care about it, and I want to see it thrive. I want to see the American comic book industry thrive, and I believe that we're gonna get into a direction, start going into a direction where maybe we do see another uptick, maybe in the American comic book industry, where we become an exporter of this material to other countries. And I think that we're going to be well on our way. It's going to come from, I think, people that are on our corner of the internet, and I'm just so excited for the future. So we'll make sure that we have all the links to all of the projects that you've worked on, everything that's available, and what's coming up. We'll make sure we get those sign-ups. But again, Graham, I appreciate you so much, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate it.
Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.